Okay, how's that?
We're still gallery view.
Same.
Is everybody gallery?
Which is great. I prefer
Right,
it.
that's good. We're all together.
Yeah, we're all together. That's it.
Lovely. So yeah, if you'd like to introduce yourselves and say a bit more.
So I'm Siobhan Reardon. I'm one of the founders of SilverVillage. I have a background in social enterprise. I set up the first BA in social enterprise in the world back in 2000. And I also set up the first postgraduate program in women's leadership in the UK. And I'm kind of giving you that academic background because it's a strong feature of our development is, you know, doing our research and knowing why we're doing something and how to do it as well. And I currently run my own online company. I was one of the victims of COVID in that I was made redundant from my job with Guide Dogs, where I designed new services for 5 years. And I have my own online company, Learning Communities Network, where I deliver personal and professional training courses online. And then the other really important member of SilverVillage is there, and that is Elsa. And if Elsa doesn't like somebody, they don't get into SilverVillage. I mean, it really is that blunt. And yeah, she's our final say in who gets to join.
It's true.
I'll hand over to Olive and Ollie.
Hello, I'm Olive. This is
Ollie.
my partner, Ollie. We have been with SilverVillage for a year or so now. I got back from traveling in New Zealand, where I lived in a EcoVillage community organic farming place for a few years. I don't really know what you'd call it. And was really looking for community back in the UK. Random Google search, we came across SilverVillage, and it sort of just aligned with all of our values, I suppose. And yeah, we've been with them ever since, really.
Yeah, we were looking into OPDs as well. We before we found Siobhan and SilverVillage, we were just looking into off-grid, kind of living off the land and seeing what was possible, and stumbled across the OPD. And I think it seems very thorough and a lot of work. I think a co-housing, converting some buildings, you know, is a lot more attractive at this point. But yeah,
I think just working with people as well. OPD seems quite intimidating when you're just a couple. Yeah. But doing things like that with a group and in community is just, yeah.
Can I ask what's OPD? Everyone keeps referring to. Excuse my ignorance.
Do you want to take it, Siobhan?
It's One Planet Development. So the Welsh Government is the only government
of course, yes,
that has created this, and it's a unique planning policy. Everybody thinks it's about building an off-grid house on land. It's not. It's about a land-based business that requires a dwelling. And it's extremely.
No, I have actually. Yeah, someone at some point.
Oh, we got a frozen Claire.
I thought she was pausing for dramatic effect.
Yeah. I've lived in 2 housing co-ops. I lived in one of the first purpose-built housing co-ops in Deptford in London. And then I lived in a kind of communal living space in East London. So I also, you know, brought to the table my experience of living in co-housing. I wanted to begin with something that I refused to acknowledge at the beginning of this journey, which is that 98% of intentional communities fail. And that means only 1.5 people here are going to succeed, and the rest of us are going to fail. And I refused to acknowledge that at the beginning. And it was like, no, we've got a really strong vision, we're going to succeed. And I wish I'd, if I could change anything, I wish I'd gone into it with my eyes much more open. But maybe you need to be blind. Maybe you need, to drive forward. But SilverVillage grew out of me accompanying my mum through dementia and end of life. And in the last weeks of her life, I was sat in her nursing home with all of the residents lined up around the wall on those high chairs, all focused in on the TV. And I thought to myself, I don't want to end my life to end in this way. And so I started to think about, well, what do I want? And the thing that I want is to die in my bed, in my own home, surrounded by kindred spirits. And I have a terminal heart condition, so it's kind of slightly more acute for me. And so the vision of SilverVillage was born there in that nursing home. And when I first started it, I had that focus on end of life. And I found our co-founder, Francesca Cassini, who runs the Silver Tent, which is a global online community for women over 50. And it's all about rewriting that story of becoming elders and the poor old crippled women, and rewriting that story. And so we started off our journey under the belief that we were going to create a co-housing project where everyone has their own home, and then there are shared spaces. And very early on, we realized you can't have a bunch of old women looking after a bunch of old women. It just doesn't work. And so began our realization that actually this needs to be multi-generational. And we're both rabid heterosexual women, so we also wanted men. And like the only other elder women co-housing project is in East London. And they have a strict no men policy, and that would be the opposite of us. So our vision of multi-gender, multi-generational was born, and Olive and Ollie came and joined on that journey. So the first thing, if somebody could tell me what to do, the first thing for all of you in terms of you want to set up co-housing is you need to build a relationship with your local authority. And so you need to know what their local development plan is. I've read Paris's 128 pages of it. You need to see what their priorities are to understand how you can fit in with that in a way that is supported when you're going for planning permission. And in Paris, as in most local development plans across Wales, there is a priority for elder housing. There is an elder crisis in this country. For example, there are currently 72,000 vacancies in care homes across the UK. That means 72, places where elders are not getting the full support that they need and the full care that they need. Now that situation is not going to get better. In fact, it's going to get a lot worse. And so the whole notion of care and housing is in crisis. And so we fit priority when we want to. We really milk the poor old ladies that you have to help. And we milk it in a big way. And but our criteria is that 40% of our members are women over 50. Why women? Because we are the poorest of the poor in the UK, as we are across the world. And pension poverty is a real way of life, especially for our generation. Many of our generation have been wives and mothers, and don't have that pension pot behind them, etc., etc. So we're very vulnerable, and we have attracted, all our members have no money. Don't know why, but we just have attracted people, and maybe because that's the only way. If you don't have that capital and you don't have those assets, the only way, if you want to live in shared in a community, you need to get together with each other. And so very early on, we kind of realized that we in our research, we found Steve Jones. Many of you will already know Steve if you're in Wales, and a permaculture specialist. He set up one of the first housing co-ops in Wales, Chicken Shack, about 30 years ago. So he kind of, and part of the story of Chicken Shack and subsequent cooperatives that he's helped to create has been that story of we don't have any capital currently under our control. And so we set ourselves up as a housing cooperative. We're legally constituted as a housing co-op, and that gives us the means to be able to mobilize capital. And as part of that lesson of you've got to know your local authority, it's fantastic if you can have a relationship with a councillor. And we were blessed in the councillor that we have a relationship with was Francesca's mum. Used to babysit him as a child. So there's a lovely little bit of, kind of history there. And he's now a Liberal councillor in Powys. And he did a fantastic thing for us. He got us a meeting with the head of planning in Powys. And, that's a pre-planning meeting. That's about £1,500 to do that. And we got it for free through the councillor. So it was actually Powys Local Authority that gave us our planning pathway, which is that, we're looking for phase 1 at least 10 dwellings. And because we are the poor old ladies, we can get transfer to residential planning. For, he suggested a farm with lots of outbuildings that could be converted, and we would get residential, get that changed. And the same with holiday businesses as well that have holiday cottages. It would be easy for us to get that changed to residential use. Again, because of that elder dimension to what we're trying to do. So that's the planning pathway that we're on. Olive and Ollie, I don't know if you want to come in here and say a little bit more about that.
The planning pathway.
Well, no, just in terms of the dwellings that we've looked at and the lessons that we've learned.
Yeah, we started looking at a lot of farms with a lot of sort of barns and outbuildings and pig sheds, and we thought this would be ideal because I'm a bricklayer by trade, so I kind of know what would be involved building wise, but then it sort of came to light that it would be, if we did go for that, it would be like a building site for 2 years maybe before.
Well, and also accessibility, I think, was the big thing that came up, because a lot of farms in Wales are quite rural, and obviously being, I don't know, the whole elder care aspect, you need accessibility for transportation and things like that. So we were having a lot of trouble actually finding a farm that had sort of enough land and enough accessibility and
wide enough road. And
I mean, luckily the group we have, we're all quite fluid with our ideologies and what we want from land. I mean, the core principles are we want to be off grid, we want to live in tune with the land, we want a permaculture based sort of, I don't know what the word is,
Development.
Yeah, that's the one. Development. And so that sort of opens up the door for all these different sorts of properties that we've been looking at. I mean, we've been looking at, you know, B&B,
holiday
holiday homes, and
businesses,
we've been looking at really loads of different
like
places.
hotels
And seeing
all sorts,
seeing if we can then convert it to sort of a low carbon and things like that, really.
And the appeal of doing it that way is that we'd be able to get in there straight away, and we'd, you know, all have a place to live straight away,
rather than go through the planning permission, OPD, building something from scratch.
Yeah.
And we're looking at a minimum of 30 acres, so that, you know, after those, we see sort of 15 to 20 people being part of phase 1, and then phase 2 to expand. We want to use OPD as a way of expanding, which is why we're looking at a minimum of 30 acres. The hotel is really interesting. We're blessed in that Francesca, our founder, does think out of the box, and we saw an advert for an Edwardian hotel at 1.3 million, 29 rooms, and then garden cottages and other buildings. And when we really seriously looked at it, we suddenly realized actually this could be really good. You know, we could carry on the hotel business, and that would give us the money to pay back the loan. And we can slowly start to build our OPD, and we can slowly start to implement our sustainable goals by converting the hotel to be off-grid. You know, we're very interested, we've done our research on energy, and it's earth-based heat pumps that we want to go for as being the most viable option in terms of energy, off-grid energy. And yet that really surprised us, that we would even contemplate a hotel. So I think that's a beautiful way of putting it. We're very fluid about where we end up, so long as we can live a permaculture lifestyle and get off grid as fast as we can. We don't think life is going to get much better. We think it's going to get a lot worse. So we want to be as independent as we possibly can. Would it be helpful if I talk about money? Yeah, so yeah, Claire, great. Yeah, I think it's boring to listen to me and Olive. We'd love your questions.
No, but it's not, it's more, it's fascinating. But can I just ask where, because I came in just literally at 7:30. Where are you based? Where are you?
So we're in Powys in Mid Wales, but
whereabouts?
Well, we're in outside the town of Llanidloes. That's where I live.
Oh,
that's where we're registered. And
we're
in
Buckinghamshire.
Yeah,
you're in where?
Buckinghamshire.
Sorry? Is that? Ollie and Olive. Just said Buckinghamshire. Okay. And Rick and sorry, Lucy, where are you?
We are in a little village called Llanboidy, which is, we're on the Carmarthenshire, Pembrokeshire border. So we're under the Preseli Hills.
Right. Yeah. No, vaguely. Okay, but essentially, Siobhan, it would be around the Llanidloes area.
If we found a site, we're really open. We're in Ceredigion. We've been to Carmarthenshire. We've been up to Snowdonia. You know, we'll go anywhere that remotely. You know, we have a big ask, and it ain't.
Yeah, it's not just going to pop up
out there.
Okay.
So, as I say, we've looked at the farms, and we would still look at farms without buildings, but with that sense that actually most of us don't want to live on a building site for 2 or 3 years. We look at holiday businesses, but they're often, again, farms that have been converted. And you know, we're all really clear, we don't want to, we don't have a unifying principle, you know, spiritual. We're not vegan, we're not vegetarian, we're not all spiritual. We're you know, people who fit into our community are people who wouldn't have strong principle, or who wouldn't be principled. They would be flexible and adaptable. Where the, you know, the founding principles are, we want to be eco-sustainable, whatever words you want to put it. We want to operate through the principles of permaculture. 40% of our membership are elder women. And the third thing, the fourth thing, which is the planning pathway, let's go back to that, is that because women are the poorest of the poor in the UK, we want to enterprise and creative enterprise is an integral part of our development model. So it's not just about having housing, it's also about having a retreat centre, education centre on site, where members can earn an income, not just can earn an income as part of it. And this is why the hotel suddenly became really interesting to us, because there's the education centre built into the hotel, you know, through the conference suites. And this hotel also had 30 acres attached to it as well. So kind of everything that we wanted to do, we could do. And so we could hit the ground running. So yes, so we would, our planning pathway is to create a new community facility. That's what we would come in terms of planning. That's what what they told us, to follow that pathway, and we would get the support of planning permission by showing that we're bringing in a new community facility to any settlement where we are based.
Great. Where do I sign on the dotted line?
Really, it's a great question, Claire, though, because, you know, we went round in circles. And again, I think this will be useful for those that are really intent on pursuing co-housing. And Rick and Lucy, I'm sure if you've been involved in the one in Somerset, you must have faced this. You know, who do you allow in? And if you're going to say no, what's your criteria of rejection? And we just felt so uncomfortable with that, and we didn't want to get into that. Well, you've got to meet this criteria, you've got to, because we wanted to be open. You know, this is where our flexibility comes in really strongly. You know, who the fuck are we to say you can come and you can't? And but actually, you know, we want it to be people that we would be happy to live with as our neighbour. You know, there's what's the word? There's an essence of caring, you know, by the very nature. It's not just about caring for the poor old biddies, because the poor old biddies have got a lot of expertise, they've got a lot of wisdom, we've got balls that, you know, you don't have when you're younger, and we have a lot to offer other generations. And so it's that, you know, we are formed on that basis of creative collaboration between generations. I lost my thread, and I was going to say something really important. So we got the I've lost my thread.
How
So
people...
we're talking about criteria or criteria.
Oh,
Who do you allow in and criteria rejection?
So it's dead easy to apply to us. You just go to the new members page and you answer 4 questions. And the membership have a look at the answers to those questions. Are they aligned with our vision? Yes, they are. You come along, you meet the membership. We have a kind of group bottom sniff of each other. And then...
Not literally, can I add? We're not that kind of community.
But metaphorically, it's a very good way of expressing, you know, what that initial meeting is. Of course, predominantly it's been a Zoom meeting, you know, with the last, etc., etc. And then we don't say no. You know, if people want to continue after they've sniffed our bottoms and they think that's a nice smell, I'll come in, then you just join and you come to meetings.
Yeah.
Those meetings happen fortnightly. You know, our constitution gives us the structure for making decisions. You know, it tells us everything that we need to do. We adopted the Radical Roots constitution, and so that kind of dictates how we meet and how we make decisions. And you come to our meetings, and then lo and behold, you discover it requires a bit of work, and lo and behold, you don't want to do that, and loads of people fall by the wayside. But the thing is, they fall by the wayside naturally and organically. And so we've never been in a situation where we've had to ask somebody to leave. So our application process is 8 months. And all of the members, existing members, do have the right of veto. In terms of somebody at the end of that 8 months, if they put in an application, each individual member, as opposed to adventurer, has the right of veto. And I suppose that's what makes us really relaxed about who we let in, is because I know, oh God, at least, you know, in 8 months I can say, no, this doesn't work for me. So it becomes a very relaxed. But I think the thing that we found most frustrating is there are so many dreamers out there and very few diggers. We need diggers, you know, we need people that are willing to put in the time. And the joy of that is you get to shape how we develop and what we develop by coming in at this early stage. And the 4 questions that we ask, and Oliver and Ollie, you've got to shut me up because I'm talking too much and you're much
Doing great.
You're unstoppable.
That's fascinating.
Well, you know, I opened with that very cynical statistic: 98% of intentional communities fail. So we wanted to learn from that. And so the 4 questions are all around what's your dream? What do you want for your life? And because we felt that if people are invested in building
big questions,
yeah, and if people are invested in building their dreams, then conflict is an inevitable part of community life. We don't have any delusions here that we're all going to be lovey-dovey and happy. We're all going to love each other. You know, human beings have been trying to do that for millennia. It doesn't, you know, necessarily work. So we accept that conflict is an inevitable part of community life. But if you're pursuing your dream and your dream is wrapped up in the village, then there's a much stronger opportunity, a much stronger desire to navigate those difficult terrains. You know, one of the reasons so many communities implode is because people say, oh, fuck you, and off they go. But if you're invested in your dream, then, and I didn't mention to you, I'm a psychosexual counsellor by trade, you know, and I studied relationships, and I'm an expert in group dynamics. And so, you know, one of the most important aspects of maintaining quality relationships is your willingness to stay in that difficult terrain so that you can get to the other side. And so that's why we have those 4 questions.
What are the other 3 questions?
So how do you want to spend your ideal day? What are the dreams you want to pursue? What would you like to contribute to SilverVillage? And how can SilverVillage help you?
And how many people?
Great questions.
How many people have sort of joined the organisation for the duration that you've been going? You're going to say something like, oh, perhaps 70 or 80 have joined. And then,
no, not at all. You know, we don't promote ourselves.
No.
Very important. I work full time. You know, all of us work full time. And so we've never ever promoted ourselves at all.
Oh,
So
apart from
no, not
recently.
okay.
Apart from, what was that?
I'll shut
Apart
up.
from very recently with the posts, because we did have an influx of new members and then quite a drop of members, which we found over the years is actually quite a normal part of it. As Siobhan was saying, it sort of weeds itself out over time. But we were getting to a low point and felt like we needed some new energy. So that's pretty much the most promotion we've done, isn't it, really, Siobhan? And that was just a few posts to local Welsh groups.
Yeah, and I'm members of different groups, including Catherine's. And if I see someone putting up a post saying, you know, I'm really looking for something, and saying a bit about what they want, and I think it might align, then I'll get in touch with them privately. But we do not want an influx of members. We can't cope with it. And it's also, you know, when we invite someone in, I open my heart, you know, and I really, and we put a lot of time into these relationships, and especially not being able to meet and not being able to experience that alchemy that happens when two souls come together. And so, you know, we put a lot of energy into building those relationships, and it drains you. You know, it really drains you when it doesn't work out. We had one woman, and her vision and what she wanted and her dream was so aligned with us, and we had a beautiful connection, and she never came to any meetings. I mean, she literally never came to any meetings. We don't know why. You know, when I would reach out to her, she would say, oh, you know, I really love you, I love what you're doing, you know, and I trained with Native Americans for 4 years, and there was that real shamanic connection. She never came to a meeting, never participated. And we've had that a lot, and that's what I mean by we get dreamers who just won't do the digging.
So then just approximately, have you had like 15 or 16 people joining and then about 8 or 9 people leaving?
Yeah, over the 3 years, yeah. We had, and I'll tell you why some of the people leave. The people that come in very principled, you know. So we had one woman come in who had a particular, you know, followed a particular modality, and she expected the whole community to follow that modality. And that's what I mean by people that have very principled ideas or notions. It'd be a bit like Claire coming in and saying, you've all got to do yoga every morning. Well, you know.
I won't make you, I promise. I won't make you.
But you see what I mean?
I'll offer it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't do it every morning, just to be clear. Just to be clear.
And for other people, that sounds amazing. I guess it's a balance, isn't it? You want the people that are, you know, really committed, that really feel drawn to it, to come to know about you, don't you? And but
yeah, so we've always had that policy of not advertising, because so we our growth is probably slower than other places, but you know, we want depth of relationship here. You know, we're going to be living together, and that's a big ask. Kathy, ask a question so I don't have to speak anymore.
Just a couple of things. So do you have like a set amount of people that you want to live with? Have you sort of like a maximum amount of people? And also, do you have like any structure based around conflict resolution? Because I mean, some of the ladies that are in our group, we kind of go along the non-violent communication kind of way. That's how we envisage, can't speak, put my teeth in, to get over things that might pop up, you know. Have you got like some small structure around how things might move, or do you think it would be just organically, like you say, people dropped out and it was an organic process, which sounds actually quite nice, really. I quite like that. It goes along with the ebbs and flows of life, right? You know, people come in and go as as they should, depending on their journey. But
unless you want to speak, Olive, I can answer those.
No, I mean, I was just going to say we haven't really dealt with that so far, because the people we've been attracting tend to align with us, and if there is that disconnect there, it's typically resolved organically without actually having to have any sort of conflict with that person. I'm sure, Siobhan, there is sort of a structure in place if we did ever have conflict, but so far we've been quite lucky in the sense that we seem to attract sort of the right kind of people, and I guess that's through our lengthy, what's it called, new members process. And
I think real credit to us that conflict hasn't been a part. We've only had one conflict where somebody didn't agree with our constitution. So our constitution says that decision making is by consensus. And then it says if you can't reach a consensus, then it becomes about a majority decision. And that's what our constitution said. But this was somebody with a very 70s mindset. And you've got to have consensus, you've got to have consensus. Well, my postgraduate research is in the study of women's organisations, which were the bastion of the collective consensus making model. And so I have a lot of kind of academic understanding. It failed miserably, and most women's organisations closed down. And that was because power was yielded under the surface. It was never clean, and that's why I went on to set up the Women's Leadership Programme in the UK. Was so this person, really reacted quite, strongly about consensus. It has to be consensus. You must never shift to majority decision making. Well, that model showed that is that nothing happens. When you can't reach consensus, then decisions don't get made and nothing happens. So one of the things that we built into our the way we develop is individuals take leadership within the consensus model. So Ollie is our leader when it comes to the dwellings, because that's where his expertise is. I'm the leader when it comes to development strategy, because that's where my expertise is. So we value each person's expertise, and we delegate the authority and the power for those people to make decisions and move the project forward. And the constitution gives us the right, the membership, at any point, if one of us makes a decision that the membership wants to talk through, then that decision goes back to the membership. So that we still maintain consensus, but we allow leadership as an inherent part of how we operate. The other thing is that we have had a conflict, so yeah, part of our development is we want the conflict resolution to be resolved in a way that is organic for the membership. So no, I've done my NVC training, so we don't have a specific model. When we had a conflict recently between two members, Francesca brought in, I think it was from one of the American communities where she'd been a couple of decades ago, and they had this thing called the quiet table, and the quiet table was in the public space, and whenever two people were sat at the quiet table, that meant that those two people had an issue to resolve. And inherent in this community was, if you had a problem with someone, you had to deal with it with them first of all. That was your first port of call. And so in this recent conflict, the two members sat and at the quiet table, metaphorically, and they talked to each other, and lo and behold, they sorted it out. So that's probably the closest that we've come to in terms of structuring how we deal with conflict. And I want to say real credit to our membership that we haven't been fully, you know, faced with that. We are in alignment, we're in consensus, and we've never had a situation where we don't agree with each other.
Can I just, sorry, is someone else coming in there? Can
go
I
for it, Claire. Go for it, Claire.
Okay, thanks. Can I just say that's impressive, because having lived in an ashram for 19 months, it was most unbelievable that there was no conflict resolution, and just, you know, and as one person said, sort of passive aggressive behavior. And it just left me thinking, well, that's not really community. And that's why I left after 19 months. So, yeah.
And that's what we learned from women's organisations, and that whole movement in the 70s, you know, of the kind of flat level, non-hierarchical structure. And the lessons from it is a brilliant book called How to Run a Railroad, that was kind of analysis of that whole model. And, you know, the truth of the matter is decisions don't get made. You don't move forward. Organisations become stagnant. Individuals within those organisations yield enormous power without it being explicit. And so, you know, we wanted to learn. We embraced the consensus model. And wanted to, and we also accept that you've got to make decisions, you've got to move forward, otherwise you're just going to get stagnant.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
Won't the time of major or some much more likelihood of conflict be when you're actually all living together? And so I'm wondering, if you're meeting every 2 weeks on Zoom, I'm not quite sure what conflicts can break out. Well, you're saying that, oh, we've seen a property here and a property here. Let's look at these. Let's judge these. What do we think? So is it discussing at the moment just lots of venues and properties, and we're having discussions about this could be the one, this could be the one. But at the moment, you've taken between 2 to 3 years, but haven't yet got a property.
That's right. We haven't found the property. What we so I'm quite impressed with what we've done, given we're all working full time, and you know, I've only got so much breath in me. So we have we're constituted. We got consultancy from the Welsh Cooperative Centre to develop our financial model. We have built a strong relationship with the local authority, not just with head of planning, but also with head of housing, head of social care, and head of elder services. So, you know, we've got an awareness within the local authority. We have written our loan stock offer, and we have a whole range of doors. We came very close to thinking that we found a property actually 2 weeks ago, and we realized that we've got a whole load of doors that are there and we just need to open them. So we're kind of, you know, set up, we've done our work, and the biggest thing I think for all of us is that we want a really solid group to move forward with. So we want a minimum of 10, aiming for 15 for phase 1. And Kathy, you know, your brilliant question about conflict, another reason why we wanted to expand, we didn't want to be a co-housing project, we wanted to look at being a village, is that was another part of our rationale was, you know, so many communities implode because you've got this small number of people and then 2 of them go into conflict with each other and the whole community collapses. And so one of the kind of mitigation strategies we thought was, well, we'll have a big load of people so that when 2 people go into conflict, they, you know, then the community is able to be that container, that bowl. But to be honest with you, kind of 3 years on, I don't know if I've got the energy and I'm really hoping that we get more people in that have that energy to move into phase 2, you know, because it is a lot in terms of maintaining those relationships, especially when we're all so far apart. Half our membership are in Wales and half are in England. So yeah.
It does take a while, but I think you've done amazing to get all that. I don't know how long it took for us to get all of that, but to do that in 3 years is very good. Very good.
But the location is almost sort of decided that it will be somewhere abouts in mid Wales, stroke Powys,
we would love that. You know, trust me, when we see a potential property in Snowdonia or in Ceredigion, our hearts sink. And if anything, there's an incredible relief when we get there and we see it doesn't work. And so we come back. You know, Mid Wales is known as, you know, Llanidloes, and this whole area is known as the heart chakra of Wales. And it's beautiful landscape. We've got, you know, strong roots here and relationships. And that's the other thing I recommend to each and every one of you that are looking at co-housing is do not listen to what they say on paper. You know, visit every place that remotely could meet your needs, because you know, we've gone to places that sounded perfect on paper and they're completely wrong. And then Francesca, with her out of the box energy, takes me to ridiculous places which actually could quite well work. So I would encourage you, don't be closed to anything. Or, you know, anything that possibly could meet your needs. And, you know, 2 weeks ago when we looked at the hotel, I would never in a million years have thought we would be looking at a hotel. And now here we are looking at a hotel.
Oh, that brings us to the point. You were going to say something about money. I'm not quite sure what you wanted to say about money before you got the question.
So we have so don't forget, we don't have any money and we don't have any assets. So that's where the old biddy thing comes into play, because we're sexy. We're sexy amongst grant makers. We're sexy amongst Welsh Government priority. We're sexy amongst local government priorities. So grant making, and obviously my background in that, I've raised over 2.5 million for grassroots organisations. So and another one of our members is has raised substantial funds and is a programme project manager. So, you know, we've got that expertise there in terms of grant funding. We also have a loan stock and a loan stock offer where people will invest money for a length of time, and they will get an annual return of between 0 to 4% interest, depending on they get to choose. And then the other thing is a mortgage. And, you know, Triodos are very interested in giving us a mortgage. They'd love it when we fit their criteria. The poor old women, we've got to help them. And so we have them already expressed an interest. We're going to start talking to the Ecology Building Society as well. So we've got a kind of three-pronged approach. And if a member does come along and they have capital, then they would invest that in loan stock. And they would also get that annual return. Claire, you're not unmute. You need to unmute.
God, I've probably been nattering with it with us being muted. If what was I going to say? Oh yeah, how does it work then? I mean, if it's is it on a rental basis or?
Yeah. So yeah, thanks, Claire. So our rent is what will pay back the loan stock stroke mortgage, but plus also the income from the education and retreat centre. You know, we have enterprise, so it's not just rent, which is what your traditional housing cooperative model is based on. It's also that centre.
Right. And that would be
becomes very interesting.
That's, I missed what you said. Sorry, Siobhan. That's
why the hotel becomes very
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. Definitely. What was I going to say? It's gone. Oh yeah.
Are we of the same age, Claire? Do we lose our thoughts together?
Yes, I think so. Yeah. Well, all sorts of reasons why. I don't know which one's on top. And now it's gone again, you see. I'd nearly got it. What was I going to say? And yeah, I presume that's kind of Happy Christmas. I see your mug. I presume that is like, what do you call it, market rent, you know.
Yeah, well, we would be, you know, don't forget, we're people without assets or capital. So low rent would be one of our, what's it called? Affordable rent.
Yeah.
You know, so on average, we'd be looking at about 400 a month. Rent. You know, couples and families would be paying more. Single people would be paying less. But if we have that as our average,
no, that's makes sense. Oh, exciting.
With this property, say 2 weeks ago, and if it's the hotel sort of thing, and there are something like about 8 of you who are sort of looking at it as the membership, thinking about it, and still humming and hawing at the moment, maybe or not, is the thing that's holding you back that you really want like 15? And if we had 15, we could go for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
How many are there now?
So there are currently 8. It's not that we have. It's kind of, it's a permanent catch-22. So Chris, it's not just that we haven't got the numbers, we haven't got the site, and so we fluctuate between this catch-22. So there are loads of people that have expressed an interest in us, but they don't want to come along until we've got the site, and we can't get the site until we get the right number of people in terms of rent. And you know, if you to ask me what's the last 3 years been like, it's like being caught in this permanent catch-22. You know, we want to get money, mobilise money in Wales, but half our membership live in England. So Wales won't give us any money, because why would they pay English people to come and live in Wales? We want to mobilise money. The English government have got some really good housing and community housing opportunities, but why would they give it to Wales? So we do feel like, you know, often just caught in this continual catch-22. But when you think about the alternative for some of us, the trajectory that I'm on and that our members over 50 are on is fucking terrifying. Do you want to end up in a care home? Do you want to end up being cared for by people paid by the minimum wage? You know, I know that's a long way off for some of you, but for others, you know, that's our trajectory. So that's what keeps me coming back, you know, each time. And I think there's nothing more beautiful than the thought of dying in my own bed, in my own home, surrounded by kindred spirits.
100%. That's why I started, because I'm only 41, but I don't have a husband. I don't plan to get married. I'm not having any kids, and my family were assholes. Yeah. So the option for me.
I'm with you on that one, Kathy.
The option for me is to die in a council flat with nobody's going to care. And I've worked in old people's homes, and I was one that cared. And my own mother has dementia, and she's in a care home at the moment, and we're told that she's looked after, but we can't go because she's quarantined. And anyway, but it just scares me. It scares me really to the core that I'm going to die alone. And I don't want that. It's shit. And it's like, community brings everything. You know, it takes a community to raise a child. And I'm a nanny for 20 years, so I've worked with special needs kids as well. So that's kind of quite big for me. You know, raising up these people that don't have enough money, that are struggling, living in these tiny council flats with no gardens, and you just kind of want to scoop them all up and bring them in and go, come live with me. And I know it sounds a bit cuckoo, but it's like, that's really what I would like to see, something like that, that really kind of, yes, it's going to be shit sometimes, yes, we might argue a little bit, but you know, at the end of the day, I'm not going to die alone. I'm going to die at home with people around me that care about me, you know, knowing that I'm part of some beautiful journey. And that's really what I would like. So, you know, and I'm, you know, a bit younger than you, but it's still the same story for me. So anyway, sorry, just jumped in.
No, it's good. It's good.
Apologize. It's something that is so real for so many of us. And you know, there's it takes a village to raise a child, and one of the things I've been saying is it takes a village to accompany someone to end of life as well. And
oh, that just sent shivers down my spine then, Siobhan.
It really does. And so don't ever apologize. And that's what I'm saying, is that we have to do something radical here. And I think the model is really interesting that we're looking at developing. I love the idea of elder women taking the lead and being proactive. We're not going to be done to here. We're not going to let this happen. Actually, we're going to mobilize now while we're able-bodied, and we're going to create something for Olive and Ollie's, you know, generation, that you know, they're going to have the support network when they have children. And you know, we know the nuclear family structure is a you know, stupid structure. It doesn't give people the support that they need, and you know, we give, you know, them a chance of having that collaboration.
And I think then to also sort of add, it's am I muted or can you hear me?
No, you're talking.
No, you can hear me. I'm talking for real. Yeah, you know, it's a two-way process. I mean, I don't have children. My one set of, my brother lives in the States and my sister lives 5 or 6 hours away. I'm very close. I'm a, you know, auntie extraordinaire. But the idea of being around children every day feels, you know, it's one of the things my mum said. We were also not all near her, and she said, I want to be in family. I mean, again, not obviously, you know, in someone's family life every minute of every day, but just that kind of, it's a mutual sharing, it's a mutually beneficial situation. I guess that's what I'm trying to say in short. What is, yeah, it's kind of win-win, isn't it, if it works?
Well, I went to a rebuild conference, and we heard from the African EcoVillage Association, and yes, that you know, that's what they were living. So for them, you know, it's more than possible. You know, that's their everyday life, living in a village, supporting each other, young and old. So
yeah,
here we are in this culture going, oh my God, I don't know if it's possible. When we've got a lot to learn from places like that, I think, where it's normal part of life. So,
and you're right, that's right, Siobhan. Catherine, it's a normal part of life, and we've lost it totally, and that's sad. At both ends of the spectrum, I think it's, you know, that, and in the middle.
Could I then just ask first Siobhan or Olive and Ollie, but whichever of you, I'd like to hear from both of you if you feel able to. If you're describing the catch-22 or the slight log jam, do we get the numbers up to make the purchase, or do we do the purchase and then get the numbers in? How are we going to sort this? I'm just wondering, and if you keep going round, so how are we going to break the log jam? What idea do you have? Think there's one way we can do this if we do X, Y, and Z. So I don't know who wants to answer.
Well, I can't answer that fully, but I think a huge step for us was, like Siobhan said, we'd never really advertised ourselves before. People just tend to have floated in and out. And I think for us, putting that post up there, you know, just saying who we are and welcoming people in was a huge step for us to sort of generate the right kind of people, but also to generate more people in general, and to sort of spread the word that we are actually out there, and we, you know, we really be the right fit for some people. So I think that for us was a huge step, and that was only a very recent thing that we decided to do.
Yeah, it's hard to say we have a plan. You know, we're so focused on a solid core group, and I don't know, it's hard to rush that sort of thing.
And I think that, and there isn't an answer to your question, Chris, other than we stay committed. You know, that's a big ask of people, and we keep searching for the right property and the perfect property, and we have our ducks in a row in terms of our mobilization strategy, and and a lot of prayer, you know, and that an alignment that we feel confident will happen. Because, you know, the way Kathy and Catherine just responded, and Claire then, you know, with quite an emotional feel about what we're doing. And it sits in people's hearts, and it makes sense at every level that this is what we need to do. And so there's a real, I can't think of a word, you know, that isn't spiritual, but, you know, there's a trust in, you know, get all your ducks in a row and then trust. Providence will provide. Goethe says, you know, until you make the decision, you know, there will be umming and erring, and, you know, things won't happen. But once you make the decision, then Providence will provide. And I think for all of us, there is that ultimate belief that Providence will provide here, because what we're trying to do and the model that we're trying to build is ripe for what our communities and our society needs.
So could I ask a question? Can you hear me?
Rick, it's great to hear from you, mate.
Did you think I was asleep? So I want to sort of expand on what Christopher, I was thinking the same thing in Christopher voice, and I feel like, you know, there's this chicken and egg scenario, and there must be a way of breaking it. One, I would imagine there are a lot of elderly ladies who would love this kind of scenario if you could just find them. That would solve the numbers problem.
No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't.
No, would it not?
No, you've because you'd end up with remember, you can't have a bunch of old women looking after a bunch of old women. So, and actually, we are more elder women at the moment than we are younger people. So, our priority is to find people with the skills and the motivation, to find the diggers out there. And alongside younger people and families. Okay, all right. So, and secondly then, what about the option of going for a smaller property with the opportunity to expand in phase 2, like with self-builds? I seem to remember when I read your website, I think I read your website, you had, you were thinking of phase 2 would be loads of OPDs on the land, and, you know, young families could have OPD projects. So I just thought maybe you could go for have a smaller core members and a smaller property with the option of expanding. Therefore, you could raise the loan stock. Yeah, and even if you're looking at that, you're still talking about $1 million. Whether you're talking about $1 million that you can just move into, right, or a 600 grand or 500 grand property that you then have to spend 2 years as a building site. But either way, you're still looking at about $1 million. And to have enough rent coming in, you would need a minimum of 10 dwellings. Right, because I mean, we've looked at other, like, smaller things, maybe to do co-housing with a smaller group of people, but not, so we haven't looked at cooperatives so much, more about people having a small amount of capital, pulling capital together and being able to afford something. And I just thought, you know, if you went for something smaller but had quite a lot of land, if you've got the planners on your side and you're ticking all the boxes with providing homes for elderly women, etc., if there was a way to buy a smaller farm that was in a good shape, it wasn't $1 million, but it was in a good shape that had plenty of land to potentially develop
with eco housing?
We haven't found that property yet,
Okay.
Rick, at all. So we find farms with farm buildings at about 650,000.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying you can't talk about less than 1 million, because to convert those buildings, even if you did it on a shoestring, you'd be looking at that. And then, as I say, there's the consequence. This isn't, you know, can you see my catch-22s? And then there's the thing of living on a building site for 2 years. The holiday accommodate with the if you're going to have OPD as part of your expansion, you've got to have land. You need land that's south facing. You need between 3 to 5 acres per land-based business. You need it not to be overlooked in any way, shape or form. I tell you, that's a real toughie in Wales, because you've either got valley properties with hills and, you know, houses that can look over, we have really struggled to find those properties that have got sufficient land that isn't overlooked to have OPD expansion.
Because there are a few OPDs, I understand. I know there's like a requirement for land, but there are a few OPDs that have been approved that are actually on quite a lot, considerably smaller pieces of land. But anyway, that's just a side thing.
Yeah, it doesn't work for us.
So the key thing then is to get more younger members with energy, or potentially members with capital.
Yeah, we're not, I know it sounds really weird, we're not that concerned about raising the money.
Right.
We've got some, you know, we've got a solid loan stock offer. We've got we meet an awful lot of grant criteria. As I said, we're sexy in lots of different ways. You know, we're sexy because of the elders, but we're also sexy because of the multi-generational model. We're also sexy because of the permaculture and the sustainability credentials. So, you know, we hit, it seems strange to say that a project with no money, we're not that concerned about money. What we are concerned about is finding the right membership that is aligned to the vision and that isn't principled. It's got to be this or it's got to be that. You know, part of co-creative collaboration is about having flexibility so that and allowing that space of compromise that collaboration requires and that relationships require. If you were coming to me for sex therapy, that's what I would be talking to you about, is the compromise of relationships. So that's where our energy is, and that's where our blockage is until we get the right number of people, and then there's an awful lot of praying that we can find the right site.
Who is the smallest group that you think that is sustainable to get things started? Something like 15?
Yeah.
Right.
That would give us the flexibility. But you see, this is why we got so excited about the hotel, which, by the way, has been sold. But this is why we got so excited about the hotel, because their income was between 1 and 5 million a year. And so, you know, we could have gone with probably our 8 that we have at the moment. We could have shown, because of that level of income coming in from the hotel, we could have made that viable. So now we're just so open-minded. We will look at anything, but whereas we were looking at farms or holiday businesses, now we're looking at businesses, and we're not afraid to go out the box on that.
So could I add one other thing? So have you felt the rough end of the housing market in Wales? Because we certainly have. We've come here and we found that things are going really fast. There's very little on the market. Things have been snapped up really quick. There's people are buying stuff that they haven't even looked at. You know, it's gone absolutely crazy. It feels like the worst time ever to try and buy or look for property in Wales. Everybody's jumping on the whole stamp duty holiday, you know, with second homes, and it's particularly hard at the moment. And I imagine you've noticed that.
Yeah, let's add that to the catch-22, shall we?
Yeah.
You know, our hotel went really quick, and you know, obviously people, investors saw it.
Where was the hotel?
It was, I think it was Carmarthenshire. We didn't even make it down. I think it possibly was the border of Ceredigion and Carmarthenshire.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, was it Cardigan Bay?
Yeah.
Was it Cardigan Bay? I don't know. I don't look at that detail. I just look at, oh my God, it's got this house, it's got this building, it's got this, and I get all excited.
Oh, I just realised it's 9 o'clock already.
Wow.
Tina says, many thanks for a very informative talk. I think with your skill set and personality, your community will be very welcoming. And I guess, yeah, like what was being said, the property search, yeah, everything that's going on doesn't make it easy, but you know, all you can do is all you can do, is it? Did you say you wanted to share your website with us or something?
No, would you like to meet the community?
Ooh.
It's just that Ollie has made a video, so let me just bring it up on my screen first, and then I'm going to share. So it's just whizzing round at the moment. Right.
Well, this was a video to thank all our people who donate to us.
Oh, can you give me permission to share, Catherine? I think when you stopped recording and then restarted, I lost my permission.
Yeah. You should be okay. I'll try making you a host.
Yeah, that's probably what you'll need to do.
Co-host should do it. Yeah, Chris.
Yeah, got it.
Oh, you got it now. All right, Chris, if you could add me back as a co-host, that'd be good.
Okay, can you see it?
I'll do that now.
No, don't do anything.
Okay.
Just in case.
Great.
SilverVillage is a co-housing project endeavouring to set up in mid-Wales. We're led by a group of women over 50, and we're a multi-generational and multi-gender community.
Hi, this is a big shout out of thanks for your support of SilverVillage Co-Housing. Thank you for your generous donations, big or small, they all help.
The thought that you are behind us and believe in us makes an enormous difference. This is a big vision and we have a long road to travel.
And we're getting there with your support.
So some of you might be wondering where your donations go.
Well, they go on travel, venue hire, subsistence when our group meets face to face.
And that is really important to all our members who are on benefits and low income, and of course for young families.
Your donations also help us to support our website, which is a really important tool for us to communicate with, especially new members. It also pays for some of the training and specialist training that our members require to be able to run a co-housing project.
Thank you so much for believing in us. Diolch.
A very big thank you from myself and Jessie and everyone at Silver Housing. Thank you.
SilverVillage says a big thank you. In addition to all the donations, we've met some lovely people and wonderful organisations along the way that have supported us.
Particularly, we'd love to say a very big thank you to Paris County Council and all the amazing staff that we've met there. And of course, the Welsh Cooperative Centre for all their incredible help and the financial model. Thank you.
And we've had some support from wonderful people along the way on our SilverVillage journey. We especially want to thank Rosie and Kathleen, who've given us sustained support over the years.
Deal.
Welsh for thank you. And we've also met some amazing Powys County Council officers who have again championed our vision, provided encouragement and support, and especially want to thank Councillor Gareth Morgan.
So from everyone here at SilverVillage, I just want to say a big thank you.
Thank you.
That's our community.
Brilliant, thank you.
Seems a great way to end, huh?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna start the recording now, but just want to say thank you for coming and sharing, and best of luck. And I think you're doing really loads of amazing. So I'll stop that recording. Beautiful.
Thank you.